Yes.
do it. So welcome again, Father Marco. So tell me a little bit about uh, what brought you here today to Denver, and we can start with that.
Thank you, Tim, and hello, everyone. Marco Gomez. I'm from the Central American province of the Society of Jesus, and I've been a Jesuit for the past 26 years. And my first assignment as a priest uh, was here in Denver. Uh, I worked, this was 15 years ago, at a Rupe Jesuit High School, a Jesuit Network school. So this year they are celebrating their 20th anniversary. So they invited me to be here for what they call Magis Night, a big celebration of the school. That's why I'm here.
And so you're also the director of Fe y Alegría in Panama.
Yes.
And so how is Cristo Rey and Fe y Alegría, are they connected or are they separate, or how's the relationship with Cristo Rey and Fe y Alegría?
Well, originally Father Foley, the founder of Cristo Rey, first Cristo Rey school and then the Cristo Rey network, he worked in Peru for a while. And we, of course, have Fe y Alegría. Fe y Alegría is an international movement on education and social promotion with the most underserved and disadvantaged sectors of the population in many countries in Latin America. And so Father Foley was in Peru, and Fe y Alegría has been in Peru for many years. So he was inspired by the Fe y Alegría schools in Peru. So when he returned to the States, to Chicago, so he wanted to somehow replicate that experience, serving, giving education, offering education, quality education to the poor, to youth in the marginalized urban areas of big cities. So that's how the first Cristo Rey school was born in the area of the Gilson area of Chicago, and then it grew. And now I don't know right now how many schools are part of the Jesuit Network, but yes, in their origin they are related. We can say, Father Foley has said it, that Fe y Alegría inspired his work in the Jesuit schools.
So is this your first ministry with Fe y Alegría, or did you work in Fe y Alegría aside of that?
I've after being part of the Arupe community here, my provincial sent me to work at the Fe y Alegría network in Nicaragua. So I worked there for a few years, doing pastoral work, coordinating the pastoral program for all the schools in Nicaragua. And then another assignment I had was in Honduras, in North Honduras, where we also have Fe y Alegría. I was part of the board there. And then I was called to be part of the International Federation of Fe y Alegría. So I moved to Bogota, where I was the executive secretary of the whole movement. And in 2021, I was asked to go to Panama to take over as general director of Fe y Alegría Panama.
And so what's the difference in Panama versus the other countries?
Okay, so Fe y Alegría in Panama is the third oldest Fe y Alegría, founded in 1965 by Father Velas himself and other Jesuits that were working at that time in Panama. The original school still exists, and it's called Fe y Alegría in the area of Curulindú, which is one of the most poor communities of the capital of Panama. So what makes Fe y Alegría different in Panama is that currently we have no schools open, so we don't, like the rest of Latin America and elsewhere, Fe y Alegría is present. In Panama, we are not working directly with schools. We are serving migrants. Of course, we are in the field of education, non-formal education, with migrants, not in schools.
So this original school is no longer part of the Fe y Alegría network?
It's no longer. It's part of the public system. It still has the name, Fe y Alegría. It's still operating, but it's not part of the network anymore.
So your ministry then, how is that how do you educate the migrants, and what are you doing?
So basically, in Panama, as you know, Panama, we have a large flux of migrants going up north, coming here to the U.S., crossing the Darien Gap, and there are also migrants that are going south from Nicaragua, going to Costa Rica, and then going to Panama. We have then two groups: those who are going north and those who go to Panama to stay there. Um, so we have Venezuelans, Haitians, Cubans, people from Ecuador, from Colombia, and of course Nicaragua, who end up in Panama, and they start living there and working and finding a more dignified life for themselves and their families. So we work with these two groups, with those who are on their way up north. We try to help them as much as we can, knowing that they are on the move. You know, they don't stop. They, after they cross the Darien coming from Colombia, uh, they stop for a few days. The government of Panama helps them in what we call the reception stations, the migrant reception stations, and they give them the opportunity to uh, go up to north, to the northern border of Panama with Costa Rica. The government provides all kinds of facilities, but the migrants have to pay their way up north. So the government provides basic medical attention when they get out of the jungle, and some food, but they have to pay for their um, bus tickets to go up. So with the second group, those migrants who remain in Panama, most of them remain in the capital of Panama, and they leave. They start looking for places to stay in some of the most impoverished areas of Panama, and that we work with them, and they come to Fe y Alegría. We offer workshops. We try to help them with legal orientation in regards to their status as migrants in the country. Most of them are undocumented, so with the help of other organizations, we provide basic information for them to go on and try to get their paper done in order to get the residence, which is very difficult.
So I wanted to back up a second. For me, when I first joined Magis Americas, Fe y Alegría was new to me. And so I think there's a lot of people in the US that aren't familiar with Fe y Alegría. And so when I started to learn about the network in the school that the Jesuit started in Venezuela, I really thought it was mostly just high schools or secondary schools, primary school, but it's more than that. It's really it's vocational training. It's what you're doing in Panama. So can you kind of describe a little bit about the style of teaching that you're doing, because it's not really a school, and how you're helping these individuals as they're trying to improve?
Sure. So, as you know, Fe y Alegría was born in Venezuela, and then it spread all over Latin America. It's what we call in Spanish educación popular, which is education for those, quality education for those who cannot afford to pay private schooling. And basically also the method is acknowledging that it's not the regular type of schooling where the student goes and receives in a popular education. Everyone knows something, and everyone is part of this learning process, which goes back and forth. The one who is facilitating the process and the students as well. So, and it involves the community. As we know, it takes a village to educate a child. So we do believe that in their education. So the community is also involved. Another important part is teacher training. And so we also work on that aspect, teacher training, we work with the community, and we work with the government. The government usually is the one who funds with public money. So it's public education in most of the countries. So that's what we do. And then another big part of the idea is that is social promotion. So social promotion means working with the community in trying to help the individuals to go ahead in their lives. And this is another way of doing education. It's not just in the classrooms. So we talk about non-formal education. You can educate in the fields, you can educate in the streets, you can educate anywhere. Uh, so learning opportunities are not only in the classrooms, but anywhere people gather and bring something to share with others.
Before you arrived in Panama, was there already a family already established that was working with migrants, or what was it there when you arrived?
Yeah, during the pandemic, the lockdown in Panama was perhaps one of the most severe in Latin America. And as you know, these migrants are not allowed to work formally. So it was very difficult for them because nobody could go on the streets and do their non-formal, selling in the non-formal economy. So Fe y Alegría was helping them, giving groups of migrants, assisting them with basic humanitarian aid, providing them with food, and in some cases also helping them to pay their rent. And in other cases also providing some medical aid whenever possible. So when I arrived in Panama, we were still doing that. And then the lockdowns stopped. People could go out to the streets again. So we started again discussing with the migrants and trying to find a better way to help them go on with their lives. So at this point, the Federation, the International Federation of Alegría, was working on an initiative. It's called Formación para el Trabajo, which is work training. And they wanted that usually this work training is geared towards high school students. So when we said, we're not working with schools because education was still, online, but we're working with migrants, most of them women, and they said, well, that's what we want, working to work with groups that are not being served. So we started then gathering groups of migrants, especially women, and asking them what their needs were. And so this initiative, this work training initiative, uh, provided the necessary funding to offer them training using technology, using, everyone uses cell phones now, but how to make or how to take advantage of current technology in order to better their entrepreneurial skills. So we started working with, we opened 3 different, I don't call them schools, but they are centers where migrants can come and receive the workshops and be part of the workshops and develop their skills, their entrepreneurial skills, in order to, get a better income on what they're doing.
Are these trainings teaching them how to do and to use their skills in Panama, or is it teaching them how to use their skills anywhere in their journey? What is the what's the goal?
Yeah. Well, we work mainly with this initiative with migrants who want to remain in Panama. Yeah. Those who want to continue their trip to the U.S. Or up north, they don't really have time, or they don't remain in Panama, so we don't work this initiative only with those who want to remain in Panama. Yes.
So I know that you got a grant from the Loyola Foundation in Arlington, which is going to help you to purchase a new truck to take migrants from the Darien Gap. So can you tell the audience a little bit about how you're going to use that grant and the truck?
We reached out to the Loyola Foundation because we a big part of our job is to monitor the how authorities and how migrants are being attended in the borders in Darien and also in Paso Canoas, the north between Costa Rica and Panama. So we were having difficulties with the truck we had. So we reached out to the Loyola Foundation asking for funding for a new truck. Well, it's a used truck, but that will help us to travel to the borders. Panama City is like in the middle of the country, which is sort of elongated in its form. So traveling to the northern border takes about 7 or 8 hours from Panama City, and going south to the border with Colombia, or Darien, because that's where the Pan American Highway ends. So we only can reach a certain point in the Darien. It takes about 4 or 5 hours as well. So and we need a strong truck, a 4x4 truck, because roads are very bad, unpaved roads, and the distances are long. Now, we are not allowed to take migrants with us because the government reserves that right. So if we were to take migrants in this truck, for example, it would be on not only illegal, but they would go after us. So what we do is we go to the reception stations for migrants, and we visit the authorities, and along with other institutions and NGOs, we do sort of monitor. So these stations to receive the migrants, they are not up to the standards that we would like to, but the government is doing what they can. Now, depending on the numbers of migrants coming through the Darien Gap, the conditions, the living conditions in the stations can get very rough.
So can you describe the stations to me, because I don't understand?
Yeah, so the stations are buildings, makeshift buildings, like camping grounds to receive the migrants. They come out of the jungle, and most of them come with wounds in their feet, and they've been walking for days. So some of them are dehydrated, or they have been through so many insect bites. So they need basic health checks, and they are provided with some medicine, and they are given a place to rest, to eat. The food is distributed, and also the stations we have seen that they get more money from the animals. Once they reach the stations, they all come with cell phones. Usually they carry their cell phones, and there are people there selling them the SIM cards, the local SIM cards, use them, but they have to pay all these services. Once they have their SIM card and it's loaded, they can communicate, they can call their parents. We've seen them, doing video calls with their loved ones, letting them know that they have crossed the Darien Gap and that they are okay and that they are recovering. And then they ask for more money because they need to pay for the services that they're getting at this once they cross the border. They have to pay, for example, they have to pay $40 for the bus tickets from Darien to the north, to Paso Canoas and the border with Costa Rica. Before that, once they get out of the jungle, they hire a little boat ride, which costs $25 per person. And who
Per family member.
for family members. Everyone pays. Really big, very small boats, that go up and down the rivers, just right out of the jungle to the stations for migrants. Food is provided, but they have to pay for their trips in the river and in the buses.
Wow. And so one of my questions is there a shelter there that they're staying at?
Yeah, that's the shelter. That's called the ERM, Estación Receptora de Migrantes.
So it's a large facility?
It's a large facility, but it's always overcrowded.
And how do they know that it's there? Do they all know that it's there?
Oh, it's known by everyone, and I mean, there are different routes in the jungle, and everyone
ask you
knows.
about that. Like, so there are certain routes that they follow.
Yes. They actually publicize this routes with the migrants that are waiting on the Colombian side. So they sell packages to the migrants in order for them to cross the Darien Gap. And they have to pay accordingly, depending on the services they want. Right? So we are seeing this has become a business and is, human trafficking at some point. You see it.
Have you been in the jungle part of the Darien Gap? Have you seen it yourself?
Yes, I have seen I've been to the first indigenous community that they encounter once they get out of the jungle. It's called Bajo Chiquito. And then there's another one, Canan Membrillo. I have not been there, but it's another community where migrants reach once they get out of the jungle. And there are no roads there. Everyone goes by boat in the rivers.
I've heard stories of migrants walking Darien Gap and finding people that have passed away or left there. Is there truth to that? Or?
Yes. Some reporters have made that trip. They have accompanied migrants. I remember this article in the New York Times, and you can see the photos there. They were with the migrants, and they were talking to them, and there are many videos on YouTube as well, showing what they encountered along the way, dead people by the rivers or by the ravines in the middle of the jungle. Very harsh conditions. It's a jungle. It's a tropical jungle. So
the other thing I guess that I find it hard to understand is understanding who the migrants are. Like, I hear often that they're coming from Venezuela, but then I also hear that they're coming from other countries. Some of them coming from the Caribbean, and even from India.
Even yes, from extracontinental countries, out of Latin America, out of South America. I remember in Darien meeting with a group of migrants that were coming from Nepal. They had been traveling for 3 months, and I was very surprised. I asked them what their route had been so far. They said that they left Kathmandu, or they left from their villages up in the mountains to the police capital, Kathmandu, and then they flew to some European countries, either London or Paris, and from there to a South American country. And then they started, asking for a ride or walking, or their way up to the Darien Gap, and then they crossed the Darien Gap. They had been traveling for more than 3 months when I encountered them. I've also encountered people from countries like Eritrea, South Sudan, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nigeria.
And do you think they're aware of the Darien Gap problem when they get there, or is it a surprise to them when they have to pass it?
They have heard that, but they don't. They can't imagine how difficult it can be. Yeah.
So, when you and your staff were there, by the way, how many staff do you have helping you?
We're a small team. We're only 10 people going on.
And so when you're at these migrant stations, are you giving any pastoral services to them or any counseling, or is it mostly just helping monitor the situation?
Yeah, we monitor the situation. We talk to them, we listen to those stories, and of course, in some cases, once they leave these shelters, some of them, we have had cases where some families from Venezuela, for example, they decide to remain in Panama. So we keep in contact with them and we try to help them settle in Panama. So, but most of them continue their trip. And they go up north into Panama within perhaps a week after they cross the line.
So the people that you find in Panama City, are they mostly, you said you're working with people that have chosen to stay in Panama, but are these people also coming from the edge of the Darien Gap? And do they know that there's the opportunity to come to your Fe y Alegría in Panama City, or are it's at a separate?
Well, of course, they listen about Fe y Alegría, and there are other organizations such as the Doctors Without Borders and the Red Cross. So they help them, and sometimes they contact us. There's another organization called HIAS, and the International Organization for Migrations as well. So depending on the cases, they can contact us. We have 2 shelters. So if they think they have a case, family, for example, that needs a shelter for a few weeks or months, they contact us, and then we see the case and see if we can offer them shelter, for the time they need to. Either perhaps a member of the family needs to be taken to the hospital to recover, or perhaps they are waiting for someone else to cross the Darien Gap. So it depends on the case, but they are referred to us.
And are people coming with their families and with young children?
Oh, yes. 20% of those crossing the Darien are minors, children and adolescents.
And are they walking the whole time?
Yes. Sometimes their parents have to carry them on their shoulders. Yes, they are.
What shape are they in when they arrive?
Well, parents normally make the effort to make this difficult trip as comfortable as possible for the children. And but sometimes tragedy is right there. We know of cases where children have died for accidents, in the crossing the Darien Gap. Others have been killed because there are armed groups there to trying to take advantage of the migrants. But their parents try to provide as much care, but it's never easy, and it's not what any parent would want for their child, and yet they do it. They know it's going to be difficult, but they come with their young children, and many expecting mothers as well, pregnant women walking the area. We've had cases, women, in the late stages of pregnancy coming out of the Darien. It's impressive. So they are received at the stations and given medical care.
Did you see that this, I don't know what to call it a problem, but I'm going to say problem, getting worse or getting better? Do you see it changing? Or how do you think that, what could we do here to really assist in,
See, we call it's a phenomenon, right? It's a situation in this monitoring that we do. We compare at the beginning of each month. We produce this chart to see the numbers that have crossed previous month, compare it with last year, and the flux is not stopping; it's increasing. So why? Well, there are many factors contributing to that. Political factors, economic reasons, violence in the countries where they come from, and so it only takes a successful story for the migrants. If they get to know that someone they know or someone they don't know, but they hear about someone successfully making the trip, that makes them want to do the same. And faith is then involved, and they just keep crossing it, keep going ahead. Now, what people can do here is, first of all, get informed, try to imagine how difficult it must be for these human beings. Nobody leaves his or her own country because they want to have an adventure. I mean, they are leaving everything behind, and many of them are leaving, trying to find a better place for them and their children. They're leaving situations of dire poverty, political violence, social violence. Perhaps there being political persecution. The situation in Venezuela is known. Violence in Ecuador, Ecuadorians, the numbers of Ecuadorians going through the Darien Gap is going up. People from Haiti, this is a very interesting case. Haiti is an island along with Dominican Republic in the Caribbean. Why are they crossing the Darien Gap? Well, these migrants started migrating years ago because of also disasters, ecological disasters, earthquakes, floodings. So they go to different countries in South America, and then they decide to. We don't realize how powerful the American dream is, in spite of the difficulties of the trade. And as I said, once they know that someone successfully made it to the States, that gives them hope. It keeps hope alive, and they keep risking their lives. Uh, we know it is a right, I mean, to migrate. So what we want is to provide as much assistance as and of course also we need to pay attention to the more structural part of this phenomenon, and but those are different kinds of works that need to be done with the governments in international stages, the UN providing information, truthful information, reliable information on the numbers and the reasons why people are migrating. So I would say people here in the States should, get informed, try to find what's behind the reasons that people are migrating. It's not because they want, it's because they're being forced somehow to live their countries, their lives, their communities, looking for a better life, which is a right. And
So in your work in Panama, are you counseling them and encouraging them to stay in Central America, or are you accompanying them on their journey here? How does that work?
Yeah, well, you have to respect and you have to inform them, of the risks ahead, of the difficulties that they will find if they want to remain in Panama, for example. Getting all the paperwork takes time, takes money. So that's why we have, this initiative of the workshops on work training. But if they want to continue their trade, we cannot stop them and say, or force them to remain. They have the right to continue migrating. So we try to provide as much information as possible. And if they need shelter to recover from this perilous trip, we also try to provide to those that we can, because we don't have much resources or staff or places to shelter them. But, along with other groups within the church, within the Catholic Church and others, we try to provide as much as possible.
Or how is Fe y Alegría in Panama funded?
Through projects, we present projects to different organizations. Right now, we are being funded by Adveniat in Germany, which is the Catholic uh, bishops organization in Germany. Also by the Swedish Church. We also have a project with them. And then there is this organization that is funding this initiative, the Federation of Fe y Alegría, and it's called Accent Center. So, and they provide funding for projects.
But you're not charging the migrants for their services, or it's all free to the people that you're serving. Fe y Alegría is not charging them.
No. These are free of charge services.
So you're all basically sustained by charity from others.
Yeah, from charity from other places. Yes. And that's why I'm here in the States as well. I would like to find partners and donors for our chapter.
I hope Magis can help you with that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
So I think we're going to wrap up, but is there anything else you want to share? Like, is there a story that you could share with the audience or something that, would help us understand an individual's journey, or like what you have seen personally that
Let me tell you the story. I'm thinking of a family that we received in one of our shelters. A member of the father, they migrated from originally from Haiti to Brazil, and then this couple had a child there, a girl, and then they decided to come to the U.S. across the Darien Gap, and they did. They did it, and the mother was pregnant with their second child. Once they got out of the jungle, I remember that we were contacted by one of these organizations that work there, giving first aid and the first responders once the migrants come out of the jungle. And they contacted us to receive both the mother, the pregnant mother, and her 6-year-old child, because the father had been diagnosed with a rare disease and was taken to the hospital. And they wanted us to help them, to help the family reunite and be close in Panama City. And so we did. We received them, in our shelter, and then members of our staff were accompanying them to the hospital, back and forth. Then the mother gave birth while being at the shelter, not in the shelter, she was at the hospital, and she had a child, a baby was born, and a few days later, unfortunately, her husband passed away. So there we were, trying to help her cope with what had just happened. And this, of course, changed her whole life, which had already been so difficult. We were trying to provide as much counseling as we could, along with the other institutions, with psychologists, trying to help them cope with that news and trying to decide what to do with their lives. They stayed in Panama, but they didn't know the language. They spoke Portuguese. They were coming from Brazil. So it was very, I mean, this is perhaps one of the extreme stories, but it's not the only one. And then the mother decided to continue the treatment. A few weeks after, she decided to continue the treatment
with a newborn child.
Yes, with the newborn child, which was about 6 or 8 weeks old. We provide all the information that she needed, and we tried to trade it to remain in Panama, but she decided to go along with another group of migrants that she knew someone else who was just crossing the Darien Gap, and she wanted to continue the trip because she has relatives here in the U.S. And since her husband had passed away, she needed to make the decision. So this is just a story, one of the many that we find every day. And of course, she contacted us almost all the days after she left Panama, and she has not made it yet to the States, but she's close. We don't know what is going to happen to her or her babies, a 6-year-old and a 3-week-old baby. They're alive. They're well. We know that God is taking care of them and that God is moving other people, to help them. But we know that God works with the poor, works and walks with the migrants as well. And we are certain that migrants are a theological place as well. God finds his ways to help them, to keep their hope alive, and to move hearts to help. But yes, this is one of the stories.
How long is the trip for the migrants from Panama to the border of the U.S.? Do you know how long it would take her to get this?
So let's say it can take between 7 to 10 days to cross the Darien Gap and get to the first station or shelter in Darien. Once there, they can take, depending on if they have the money, having the resources, the financial resources. But let's suppose that they have the money, and this is interesting. Companies, are at the border crossings, or it's a business, and they get some benefits, the commissions by transferring funds from whoever is helping them. So if they have the resources, once they get to the first station in Darien, they can perhaps be there by maybe 1 or 2 days, and then every day there are buses going from Darien to Chiriquí. It's a trip that lasts about 10 hours. With their children and everything. Unfortunately, sometimes tragedy hits. A couple of weeks ago, one of these buses had an accident. There were 66 migrants inside the bus. And very early in the morning, at about 4:30 in the morning, the bus had an accident and 41 people died. A second bus, 3 days later, halfway from Darien to Chiriquí, caught fire. Fortunately, nobody died, but the government then stopped for a few days the ride of the buses going from Darien to Chiriquí. They have resumed the trip. So if they have money, the resources, they can pay the $40 that the bus ticket costs. Once they reach the northern border with Costa Rica, if they have the resources, perhaps they can be there one day or one night, continue their trip to Costa Rica the next day, and crossing Central America takes them between 5 and 7 days to reach the border between Guatemala and Mexico. So 1 week plus. So in 2 weeks, they can come from Colombia all the way to Mexico.
And is Fe y Alegría helping them along this entire journey in Central America, or is it just Panama and Fe y Alegría?
Well, the Fe y Alegría in Panama, we are part of the network. It's called the Red Jesuita con Migrantes, the Jesuit migration network. And of course, we provide information of the different shelters that they can find, not just the Jesuit affiliated shelters, but also with the Franciscans and others who are also helping them, Scalabrinians also, with different countries. So we provide the information, and some of them go along the way, and we know that they are advancing in their trade. Yes. Thank you for letting us tell the story, and thank you for the help that you can give. Yes, we thank the Loyola Foundation for helping us, keep working with migrants.
Well, thanks a lot.
Thank you.